Hello and welcome to the YYC Soccer Podcast. My name is Jason Kmet and my co-host is Scott Strasser. Hey, Scott.
Hey, Jason. How's it going?
Pretty good night tonight. Just pretty quiet overall. How about you? How's your week been? How's your night been?
Pretty good. Had a work outing tonight, like a social outing with my work colleagues. So that was pretty fun. Just got back about half an hour ago, and I'm excited to shift from mostly talking about local politics to talking about local soccer.
Sounds good. If you are a new listener to our podcast, Scott, what is the YYC Soccer Podcast all about?
So our podcast focuses on soccer in Calgary at the professional, post-secondary, and amateur levels. We talk a lot about the city's two professional soccer teams, those being Cavalry FC and the Calgary Wild. But we also talk about amateur soccer and even grassroots soccer, all with a Calgary-specific focus.
This week, we're going to preview the Calgary Wild. They're playing in Montreal. We're also going to talk about Cavalry FC. They're playing in Ottawa. USports is starting their season this weekend, and we'll talk a bit about the men's division because the Calgary-based teams in the men's division are playing this weekend. We'll also talk a little bit about Canada Summer Games, and we are going to have an interview this week. Scott, who's our interview with?
Earlier this week, we interviewed Jorian Baucom, who is a recent signing for the Calgary Wild. She's an American, originally from Arizona, brings a lot of professional experience, including games in the NWSL and a couple of seasons in Europe to the team. So we talked to her about her first few weeks and matches for the Wild and what it's been like to adjust to a new roster midway through a season.
Yeah, and I think she's done a pretty good job of that. And she's really added a different element to the Wild's attack. So a pretty welcome addition on the pitch. And we're going to run that interview in a few minutes, but we might as well get started on our first segment, which is going to be all about the Calgary Wild.
Hey, y'all, this is Jorian Baucom, and you're listening to the YYC Soccer Podcast.
So the Wild will be back in Montreal this Saturday. Early kickoff against the Roses. The last time the Calgary Wild went to Montreal, it didn't end well for them. But they're coming into this match with a little bit of momentum, having won their last two games. So overall, I mean, the game bodes well for the Calgary Wild to try and scrape out a result against one of the league's top teams.
And the other thing that's interesting, Scott, is the Roses are going to be a little bit wounded, I think. News came out yesterday, I guess Wednesday, that their leading scorer, Latifa Abdu, has asked to leave the club. She doesn't want to be there anymore.
Which is pretty bad news for Montreal. She has been a real danger for the team this season. So, is she going to play in this game, or is she just formally asked to leave?
Well, I don't know, but way I read this, I don't know how you go back into the dressing room after this. So she said, here's the quote that she has. She wanted to, quote, continue her career in an environment better suited to her personal goals and playing style. And she's asked to be either transferred or released. And she does have a contract option for 2026. But the Roses said they fully respect their decision and they are working on a transition process to get her off the roster. So she's scored 6 of their 17 goals this year. So she is their leading scorer and a big contributor.
Yeah, and she earned a call up to the national team earlier this summer, did she not?
I think that's true, yeah. But anyway, so it seems unlikely that she'll be at that match. But it's a bit of, like I said, it's a bit of a wounded team right now with all this stuff. So who knows how that will motivate or demotivate the Roses, but the Wild are going into this match on their first ever 2-game winning streak. And, they're riding a real positive wave right now. Yesterday, Wednesday, they had a big announcement. They made a pretty big move for the future and locked up Meggie Dougherty Howard for 3 more years until the end of 2028.
Yeah, this is really good news for the Wild, seeing the captain commit to the team for that amount of time. Jason, we were kind of speculating what this announcement was going to be because the Wild did tease it a few days earlier with a press release, and we were wondering if it was going to be contract extension or a transition into a player coaching role or possibly a transfer to a new club for a transfer fee. But out of all the possibilities, I think Wild fans would have been most pleased with a contract extension because Meggie Dougherty Howard really has delivered, I think, what was promised from a player of her caliber this year.
Yeah, I completely agree. She's brought all that onto the pitch. And then also, it's pretty clear that she is the leader of this team. And in conversations with other players, whenever it comes to sort of like who's taking the lead on this club, her name always comes up. So she really is kind of, I think, a linchpin on the team. So big news that she'll be around. And by the way, I was going to mention something which I think maybe people will find vaguely amusing is that manager Lydia Bedford said a few words at the contract signing ceremony, and she said she was very amused by the online speculation and all the different things that people were suggesting could happen. I was wondering if she's talking about us or other people, but she said she found it all quite amusing.
Yeah, I can't imagine she was talking about anything other than the question that we asked on social media. But yeah, good public dialogue, and as mentioned, I think contract extension is exactly what fans would have been hoping for. So they got their wish. And yeah, heading into Montreal, taking on a team that just lost their leading goal scorer, kind of the team talisman, I think, Latifa Abdu, and a team that's honestly not in that good of form because, early, like Montreal were the pace setters in the early weeks of the Northern Super League, but they have dropped off a little bit and they're actually winless in 3 heading into this. They lost their last game to Ottawa 2-0. And before that, they lost to the league's top team at the moment, AFC Toronto, 2-1. And before that, they actually tied the bottom team in the standings, Halifax, 1-1. So they actually haven't won since that last game against Calgary, which was week 15. And that was a 2-0 win. But it was a strong performance from them. So hard to say what's going to happen this Saturday, but excited to see how it all shapes up.
Couple other just roster kind of notes I wanted to add in. If anyone is wondering about transfer window, the transfer window for the NSL closes on August 31st. The Wild have all 25 roster spots filled. So I don't think it's very likely we're going to see any other movement, but I know we're getting close to that, closing of the window. So some other teams might be making some moves, but it doesn't seem terribly likely that there will be a last minute move by the Wild.
Yeah, they just signed Michelle Romero as their final player, and she did get a cameo in their last game. So I am wondering if she'll get a longer run out this week, or if she'll maybe even start as fullback. So excited to see how the game goes.
Yeah, I think now would be a good time to run our interview with Jorian Baucom. I've been really impressed with her style of play and what she's brought to the team in the last, I don't know, what is it, maybe 4 matches she's been with the club. So we had a chance to chat with her about her career and about her style of play. And I think we should probably run that now. I'd like to welcome Jorian Baucom to the podcast. Jorian is a forward for the Calgary Wild. She has joined the club mid-season, I believe, in late July. Yeah, welcome to the podcast, Jorian.
Thanks for having me.
So I guess a good place to start would be, could you just give us a little bit about your background and your playing career, like where you grew up and sort of your career prior to coming to the Wild?
Ooh, it's been a journey for me. Played all over. So I am from Scottsdale, Arizona. Grew up playing club soccer, competing in ECNL. Not sure if that's a thing at the time now. Kind of just aged myself there. Played high school soccer as well. Played for my ODP regional team. I played for the U.S. youth national teams from age 13 up until about, I was 21, 22-ish. Went to Louisiana State University. So I was at LSU for about 3.5 years. And then I did my senior year at the University of Colorado Boulder. Both unreal experiences. Loved college soccer. Had so much fun. And then started my career with the Seattle Reign in the NWSL. Eventually went to the Czech Republic and Prague. Was more of a traumatizing experience. Won't get too much into that. So I was unfortunately only there for a few months due to, issues outside of football that just weren't the best. And then came back to the Houston Dash and COVID hit. Again, just starting off my professional career a little rocky. And then during that COVID year, decided I wanted to finish like a season under my belt. I went to Germany, played in the Bundesliga with MSV Duisburg, which again, loved playing in that league. It was super fun, really cool experience. And then from there, came back to the NWSL, signed with Racing Louisville. Again, 2021 was one of the more historic years in the league due to, again, more traumatizing things. A lot of, how do I say this? Our head coach is someone I hope will never see the women's soccer profession ever again, and I will just leave it at that. So again, another bumpy year, but the team there was great. We played in this International Women's Cup and made it all the way to the final, played Bayern Munich in the final. I was able to score against them, and that helped lead us to winning the championship for the first time in Louisville history for racing, which was pretty cool. And again, just being able to say, like, you scored against Bayern Munich. Most, strikers can't add that to their resume. So that was a really cool experience. So again, just because the year during that time at the club was not the best mentally for a lot of us girls. A lot of us left. So then I took my career to the North Carolina Courage. Again, unreal training environment, really developed and grew as a player, and just decided that I wanted to push myself more and take more of the overseas route. I was young. I wanted to travel and explore and find my love for football again. So I went and had a season in Portugal, played for Damayense in Lisbon. Beautiful city, club, atmosphere, environment, had so much fun there. Gosh, I literally have been all over the place. And then one of my better seasons in like my entire professional career, I went to the UK, played in Scotland for Hibernian Women, who just recently won the SWPL League. So shout out to my little Hibees over there. The girls are doing their thing. Again, unreal experience from the fans, club, team, everything. Just that was finally the year where I truly found my love for the game again. And I think that's the interesting thing about being a professional athlete. You see us on TV and, doing these interviews and the fun things, but most people don't know behind the scenes, it's more of a mental battle than anything. Like the physical part, will come, you can stay fit, score all these goals, but if you're not mentally in the right mindset to perform and do what you need to do, it can get really tough and really dark. And my time in Scotland again reignited that love for the game again, and it's like, okay, like I can do this. Like every journey is going to be difficult. It teaches you a lesson, and after that season I knew I wanted to continue playing. And then the USL came up, first year league for women's soccer in the States aside from the NWSL. So I thought that was really cool because, growing up, your only opportunity to play in the States was the NWSL, which is extremely difficult to get into and stay playing in that league. So I was like, you know what? I've been overseas all over, had the time of my life, but during that time wanted to be close to home. And so signed with DC Power in the Washington, DC area, or like the DMV area. And again, great time. But just from a football standpoint, my development just wasn't getting fulfilled at the time. I'm always trying to challenge and push myself. I still have a great relationship with all the staff there, the ownership, literally whatever support or any help they need, I will still always have their back. And then went to Fort Lauderdale United. We made it to the championship for the league, which was super cool. We unfortunately lost to Tampa. Still a little salty about it, but won't get into that. But, just being able to play in Champions League and these different international tournaments and making it to the championships of the league, it's just kind of crazy to know that I've been a part of all this and making history for first year women's leagues. And now I'm here in Calgary and hopefully able, to make a statement and show my presence and dominance in this league. And literally loving it so much already. Like you said, I just got here, but this environment, how do I explain it? Honestly, I haven't been in an environment like this in a while, and you can just feel the love and passion that they have for women's soccer here, and I'm really excited to continue to be a part of this here.
You've been in Calgary for a couple of weeks now, maybe a month or
Mhm.
so. Can you talk about how the opportunity arose to sign with the Wild? Because we did notice that you were a teammate of a Calgarian player who's well known here. She's not on the Wild, but Sarah Kinsner was, I believe, your teammate at the University of Colorado. So maybe I was wondering if she had told you about Calgary and that's how you learned about the city. And then when you found out there was a team, you were interested. Can you kind of talk about how it came to be that you signed with the Calgary Wild?
Yeah, I actually have quite a few friends that play in this league for different teams, and once my season in the USL ended, I was kind of like, what do I wanna do next? I'm all about being in the best environment for myself and what would be a good fit for my playing profile, the things I'm looking for. And obviously, this league was still going on while I was looking for a team and reached out to the girls. And literally, every person I've reached out to about playing in the NSL has raved like nothing but good things. And from the fan standpoint to how they're treated as players and people, which is something super important to me. Going back to the mental health piece, everything just kind of checked out, and I'm like, okay, I want to be in this league. And I actually had a Zoom call with Lydia and a few others from the staff before coming to Calgary. And again, everything just lined up between values, how they see myself fitting into the team, the culture. Literally, the list could go on. And I was like, okay. And it seems like Calgary is one of the cities that doesn't have too harsh of a winter. I know I was in the UK, but they're like, it's sunny and great here. And I'm like, okay, as long as I get the sun for a few months, I'm sold. And then Sarah, yeah, we were teammates at CU. Unbelievable player. Loved playing with her and having her underneath me in the midfield. She's truly one of the most talented players I have luckily been able to be with on the pitch. And yeah, she's been reaching out to me, trying to get her to come out to a home game. And like you said, low key, like the face of Calgary. So just getting her take on the city and again, hopefully having her come out to a game and we can, have a little reunion. I genuinely haven't seen her since college, and we're like, this is the craziest, full circle moment that we're both in the same city again. And, I think she's still playing in the summer leagues here, I believe. And it's so nice to see that girls are still continuing to play because that's what brought us together back in the day.
How would you describe your style of play? Like even playing as a hold-up striker against Halifax, for example. Talk about that.
Oh, yeah, Halifax. They were, trying to beat me down in that game, but yeah, like you said, I consider myself a very strong post-up 9, being able to hold the ball up, as well as being able to connect with my midfield, being able to spin, use my speed, being hungry in the box. I also really pride myself in my work rate, getting after defenders, sprinting, working till the last minute possible, putting in tackles. I don't care if I have to slide to ground and clear the ball out if need be. Yeah, I would just say I'm a true traditional 9. But what surprises most people, I'll pull it out of my locker every now and then. I do have the technical ability and can use my left and right foot, like to do some moves every now and then and just remind myself like, okay, the footwork is still there, but yeah, just trying to be a physical dominance on the field and make defenders hesitate about going against me or going into a tackle with me.
Jorian, I wanted to ask what it was like to sign for a team mid-season and if that's something you've gone through much in your career. Because, yeah, coming in, how was it to integrate with teammates who've already been getting to know each other for several months at that point?
Aside from the team in Germany during that COVID year, this is one of the first teams I've come mid-season, and it's been great. The girls are genuinely the most sweet, nice girls I've been a part of in a locker room, honestly. And literally since day one, asking if there's anything I need or showing me around or, just showing me the ropes of how everything works. And we have a great leadership group, a great captain, Meggie, her and I are starting to build our relationship on and off the field, and that's slowly starting to translate in games. And even from the staff, both coaching and behind the scenes, we just have a special group of people here at the club, as well as ownership. I think I just came here and immediately felt welcomed and loved truly from week one.
You're kind of in a bit of a unique position here. You're in the NSL in its first year, and last year you were in the USL Super
Mhm.
League in its first year. So, what are your impressions of the NSL about style of play and level, and how does it compare, like a first year league compared to the USL being in a first year league last year?
Yeah, I think they're both fairly similar. It's a good high level quality of football. And again, that just gives more women the opportunity to play, in the States at home, to play at home in Canada. And I think just being able to say that you're a part of history, literally, and paving the way and hopefully continuing to make it great. And again, as far as the level, you can practically see it in the standings. We're all so close within points. You don't know who could win any given day. Whatever team's the most hungry to show up and perform can win. I don't think there's any huge gaps in between teams and playing level again. And I think that's what makes it so exciting because you have to lock in every week and be ready each game day because you have to give your absolute best. And again, we're on a 2-game winning streak. We're building momentum, and you can feel the energy and the excitement rising throughout the team. And we're about to have a big push, having 2 games away on the road coming up and 2 big ones against Montreal and Toronto. In our mind, those are must-win games, and again, it's just staying calm and going week by week with our game plan, but it's been really exciting for me because 'cause I've only been a few games in, and I'm like, "Ooh, these games are a little intense. These are fun to be a part of." And, having the top 4 teams advance, that's what we could only hope for in a first-year league, making it to the semifinals and hopefully winning the whole thing, but it's definitely been 2 exciting leagues and so many positives already that I've seen in both the USL and the NSL, and specifically here, the fan support in the community surrounding this league. I've never seen anything like it for a first-year league.
Jorian, thanks for coming on our podcast. We really appreciate your answers to our questions.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks again for having me.
Thanks again to Jorian Baucom for doing the interview. Jason, she referenced something about her time in Louisville that we just wanted to add a little bit of additional context to regarding their former coach.
So yeah, just to provide a little bit of context, at the end of August in 2021, that was the season that Jorian was with Louisville. There was an announcement that their head coach, Christy Hawley's contract had been terminated for cause. And it took until 2022, a year later, where more details came to light. And what was found out in a bigger investigation was that Hawley had been fired due to alleged sexual abuse, and Louisville player Aaron Simon had accused him of sexual coercion and harassment. So he was ultimately banned from the NWSL for life in 2023. So we thought maybe we should just provide a little bit of context because Jorian touches on it, but yeah, some pretty serious stuff.
Hi guys, my name is Tov Kule and you're listening to the YYC Soccer Podcast.
So now let's talk about Cavalry FC. They're also going to be out of town this weekend, traveling east to face Atletico Ottawa on Saturday afternoon. This game is kicking off at 5 p.m. Calgary time. Cavalry coming into this game after last weekend's thriller of a match against Vancouver FC. That one we talked a lot about in our last episode, ending 5-4 with Dan Klomp scoring the winner with literally seconds left on the clock. Ottawa coming into this game after probably a demoralizing 2-0 defeat to Forge in a top-of-the-table clash. So from Cavalry's perspective, this is exactly the time to play Ottawa, even though it is going to be a road match.
Ottawa's had a pretty strong season, but right now they have, relatively for them this season, a rougher patch. So you got to go there sometimes, and I guess this probably is as good a time as any from that point of view.
Definitely. And before that 2-0 loss to Forge, Ottawa had also lost 3-1 to Vancouver FC in the Canadian Championship first leg of their semifinal tie. So 2 disappointing results for Ottawa on the bounce. But of course, this is a team that took 6 points from Spruce Meadows this season, 2-0 and 3-1 wins. And those were very much deserved. So we do know, and Jason, you and I have talked in previous episodes about just how strong this Atletico Ottawa roster is this year.
Over the course of the year, they've looked really good and they've been strong. The roster looks good. They've performed. There's no other way to really say it except that, Forge and Ottawa have been the best 2 teams in the league this year. And it's going to be a tough match for the Cavs. But, I think from a timing standpoint, they're coming in on a high. Ottawa's a little bit maybe not coming in on a high. So
yeah, Ottawa's only lost 2 of their 19 league games this year. Definitely one of the CPL's heavyweights at the moment. What is interesting, though, is they don't have the strongest defense. They and Cavalry have conceded very similar number of goals. Ottawa's conceded 19 in their 19 games. Cavalry's conceded 20, but they sure put the ball in the back of the net. 37 goals in 19 games. That's tied with Forge for the best offensive output in the CPL. So this has the potential, I think, to be another high-scoring game.
Yeah, I think maybe take the over on this one, right?
And I think standings-wise, big ramifications as well, as Tommy Wheeldon Jr. alluded to in his post-game press conference comments last week. There's a 10-point gap at the moment thanks to Cavalry's win and Ottawa's loss last week. So a Cavalry win cuts that down to 7 points with 8 games left, which is a feasible gap to overcome in the last 8 weeks of the season.
It is possible. They're still within touching distance.
So there's not much more to say about that game, but similar to the Calgary Wild, there have been some roster moves in terms of Cavalry FC, Jason, including one that you noticed when checking out some local university team rosters earlier this week.
Yeah, in our next segment, we're going to talk about USports. So I was trying to get a bit prepped up specifically about the Dinos and Mount Royal, but Canada West in general. And I noticed Mount Royal posted this year's roster for the men's team, and Chanan Chanda is on their roster for this year. So I'm guessing that means that we're not going to see him with Cavalry for the remainder of this season as he joins Mount Royal.
No, but to be honest, Chanan Chanda hasn't really played that many games for Cavalry this year anyway. I think he's actually played fewer this season than he did in 2024. It's a really great get for Mount Royal, but for Cavalry, it is a bit of a loss because he did provide a little bit of extra depth. He was that forward that you could bring on in the second half. And although he wasn't picked for the 18 a lot, he had some injury troubles this year, but he did still seem to play semi-regularly, I thought, for the U21s. So not sure how I feel about this one other than he's definitely going to be a weapon in USports.
For sure. The transfer window for the CPL is a little different than the NSL transfer window. It actually ends, I'm not sure if it actually ends at the end of Thursday or it ends on Fridays for the CPL for this year. So seems unlikely that they're going to add anybody. Their roster is also pretty full. So there could have been a move made, but it hasn't been announced yet. But I think what we're looking at is pretty much now that with Chanda going to Mount Royal, I think what we're looking at is probably what we're going to see for the rest of the year.
I think with Kinija Elva coming back to full fitness, with Toby Warshevsky firing on all cylinders again, with the possibility of Dan Klomp contributing to Cavalry's offensive output, and with the signing of Ayman Salouf, things aren't looking too bad in the attacking core right now. So as long as those players can deliver, I don't think Cavalry fans will be bemoaning the results of this year's transfer window.
The loss of Schmidt Schom he's been a rock on this team, but Max Peepgrass has been playing okay, and Michael Baldissimo, is not exactly the same kind of player, but he's recovered from his injury, and Eric Kobza can also play midfield role if needed. So even though I think that most people would agree that Schmidt Schom is missed, but there are at least a few viable candidates to attempt to fill his shoes while he's out of action.
Yeah, Diego Gutierrez, another name, defensive midfielder who missed a lot of the season with injury, but has been back to full fitness and has played the last few games.
Hi, this is Anton Minty, and you're listening to the YYC Soccer Podcast.
I'm a bit surprised myself here. The USports season had just kind of crept up on us, and I just realized a couple days ago that there are matches this weekend.
Yeah, it seems like we were just talking about League One Alberta, and that's kind of because we were, right? I think the final was less than 3 weeks ago, 2.5 weeks ago. And here we are on the cusp of another university season. So a very short, I guess not really much of a break at all for USports players who transition from League One right into USports preseason. But both of Calgary's men's university teams will be in action this weekend, although the women won't be in action until next weekend.
This weekend, the Edmonton universities come down to visit the Calgary universities. On Saturday, MacEwan will play the Dinos, and the University of Alberta will play Mount Royal. And then on Sunday, they switch dance partners. It'll be Alberta versus the Dinos and MacEwan at Mount Royal.
Yeah, and the Saturday games, the kickoff for both games is at 1 p.m., so you could probably only watch one of those. But on Sunday, those two kickoffs are staggered, with the Dinos taking on U of A at 2 p.m. and MRU hosting MacEwan at 4 p.m.
As we mentioned in the previous segment, the rosters for the Cougars and the Dinos have been posted online, and we've perused them a bit. There are a lot of familiar names on there, like returning names, but there are also some new faces for sure.
Definitely, especially with Mount Royal University. Some big names have finished their university careers, like Caden Rogozinski and Miguel de Rocha come to mind. But what I did notice when perusing their roster is the German connection is still going strong. I think I see 6 names here which says that they're originally from Germany. So I'm curious to see how that goes for the Cougars this year. And in addition to those imports, there are, as we've mentioned, Chanan Chanda is going to be, I think, a really strong player for the Cougars this year. And then they also have guys like Josh Flaxman, who's entering his 5th year. I would expect him to be a leader for this team. Skylar Rogers, former Cavalry Sports draft pick, he's entering his 4th year. So they do have some continuity from the teams that have competed at nationals in recent seasons. But yeah, you could almost argue that it's a little bit of a semi-rebuild for the Cougars.
They don't have tons of players, in the 4 and 5 year experience range like maybe they've had in last couple years.
So looking at the Dinos roster, a little bit more continuity as far as I can tell, with some big returnees being the Plenzik siblings, Jan Marco and Joey, but also another guy who spent the season with Cavalry up until now, Owen Antonia. Him returning is a really big deal, I think, for the U of C's prospects.
Barring something unusual, I think he's got a chance for the Golden Boot in Canada West. I think, I don't know what his numbers were last year, but there's no reason to think that he won't be right at the top there, being a pretty dominant goal scorer this year. So, and yeah, there's a lot of other names that I think, if you've been following on with this Dinos team that have been around for a while, there's even, James Greco Taylor is another one, and William Omaneri and Milan Ponjevic. Like, these are all players they're in, like, I think their 4th or 5th year.
And one name I kind of want to highlight, I think this guy's going to have a big season, is 2nd-year forward Efe Udolu Joshua. I saw 2 Dinos games last season, and even as a rookie, he just looked like he was giving defenders problems. And I believe he scored a couple of goals last year, but that was just getting used to USports. And I think with a year under his belt coming in as a sophomore, I don't know. I just have a feeling like he's going to go off, because in a couple of the interviews I did last year with Dinos players, they just referenced him. They said, our forward FA, he's a good player. So I'm excited to see what he can accomplish after becoming a Canada West All Rookie last year.
He played for Blizzard in League One, and I believe he hit the score sheet several times. I'm just checking here right now, and he scored 5 goals for Blizzard this year in League One.
This is Meggie Dougherty Howard, and you're listening to the YYC Soccer Podcast.
So we've been trying to keep track of Canada Summer Games and what the Alberta teams have been doing. So we're going to talk about the women's divisions. So Team Alberta had their preliminary round matches this week. On Tuesday, they played Saskatchewan. They won 5-1. And then on Thursday, they played Newfoundland, and it was a 1-1 draw. So actually, Alberta and Newfoundland were tied with 4 points, but on goal differential, Alberta won the group, and they'll be going into the medal round.
Yeah, probably thanks to that 5-1 win over Saskatchewan. So as a result, they're going to be facing Ontario on Friday, and that's basically a semifinal. The winner will advance to the gold medal game, while the loser will compete for bronze. So no matter how it shakes up, this Alberta team, which has a lot of Calgary players on it, will be competing for a podium position. It's just a matter of which color of medal.
Thank you for listening to the YYC Soccer Podcast. You can have this podcast downloaded to your device as soon as it becomes available by subscribing on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or other platforms. Check out our website at yycsoccer.com, where you can look through our episode archive, and you can find other options to listen, including our YouTube channel. We also have links there, so you can buy Scott's book. It's all about the history of pro soccer in Calgary, and it's called Here Come the Cavalry. You can leave a question or comment in the Contact Us section of our website. You can also interact with us on social media, such as Twitter or Instagram or Blue Sky, where our username is YYC Soccer 403. Thanks for listening.